as we were walking through and kind of meeting one another. It was so great to walk into the room and hear laughter going on and hear stories. And today, though there may be tears, today's going to be a day of encouragement, a day of celebration, and a day as we positively look at a wonderful life of Pam Arndt. And so today we're going to start off our service with a word of prayer. Would you guys bow your heads with me? God, we come to you today, and though we sit here in this room with heavy hearts, though we sit in this room with emotion that sometimes we can't control, God, we know you're a God that is in control. We know that you're a God that loves us beyond what we can think or imagine. And today, Lord, we celebrate Pam's life as she is with you in heaven. God, we ask that you would allow us just to be encouraged by the life that she lived and to honor her with how we go about living our life. Jesus, we love you today. It's in your name we pray. Amen. We're going to start off our service today by singing a song that Pam loved. And if you know it, you can feel free to sing along as you sit in your seats. And Jason's going to lead us in a song, I Can Only Imagine.
I can only imagine what it would be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? To my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak it all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine when that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever worship you. I can only imagine, yeah. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? To my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak it all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Oh, surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? To my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak it all? I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Only imagine. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever worship you. Can only imagine.
thing to think, huh? What Pamela is doing right now. Kurt's asked for a few of the family members and friends to share a few words, and I'm going to ask for Lloyd Munson to come up now and just to share a little bit of his memories of Pam.
Good afternoon. That was great. Thank you. That didn't take long at all. As the youngest brother, Pam's only brother, we had a interesting relationship. I knew her some ways that probably others didn't. I was the bratty hang around. I remember sometimes she'd be with her friends and they'd want to go skating, and I'd want to go with them, and Mom and Dad would make her take me. But the consideration was, fine, you can go, but there's no room in the car, so you have to sit on the back seat floor, literally. So her friends would get in, and I have to squish between and have feet and legs and everything on top of me while we made it to Wisconsin State University or Rolero, whatever the choice was for the night. But it was just, I wanted to be with her, probably a little bit protect her. And as time passed, we aged, grew up. I couldn't protect her anymore. We all felt the responsibility, obligation, call it what you want, for that. All of our family, cousins, great husband, children, friends of her children. But it was really funny. No one could ever say anything negative about Pam. Because if they did, it would be a swarm of ants on a drop of syrup. There was no one else outside of the familyhood could ever do that. But behind closed doors, with Pam in the room, well, all bets were off. And okay, I'm going to be a little inappropriate here, but so we were just joking in the back about how Pam got her front-loading washer and how that was such a great monumental thing. And I just had a flashback of what it would be like when we were younger if we had a top loader, if Pam was down getting laundry out of the washing machine, and you'd walk in a couple hours later and all that you'd see would be Pam's leg sticking around with her head in the wash basin. Now, inappropriate, yes. Comical, absolutely. But it was a relationship that we had, and we could do that, but not anyone else. So when all this was going on for the past many years, illnesses fell upon her. It was hard for her, and we could only do what we could. Kurt was a rock. I can't thank you enough, man. You were awesome to her. Truly appreciate it. But with all the strength that she endured through her life, that she needed to endure, and all the pain and everything that she had to go through, it just wasn't enough. It was just too much for her eventually, and she had to go. And I take comfort in knowing that the pain that she was feeling for years prior to this is over. She can now be peaceful, be happy, not have to worry about anything. She's there with two of the women that she respected most out of everything, and that'd be Grandma Marie and Grandma Gladys. She spoke highly of them, researched them, talked to them as frequently as she could, and they were very, very good to her, and she loved them dearly. I have something a little cheesy here. I wrote down today. I was debating whether I was going to share it or not, but in that spirit of memories, and I'm sorry, Josh, I was supposed to be up here, sharing memories and things, and I never really got to it because there's just too many memories I have of her to share. Pick one out that's really special, but all the memories we have, I won't forget them. She will live on with me, with all of us, forever. And that's the beauty of it. So I did write this down, and it may get a little, hopefully not too long, so I apologize if it does. But it was written by an unknown artist. Basically, it's, at the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of the spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of the summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we'll rely on them and remember them for that strength. When we are lost and sick at heart, we'll remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we'll remember them. When we have decisions that are far too difficult to make, we'll remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. As long as we live, they too shall live, for they are a part of us, and we'll remember them. So, thank you.
Sasha, I'm going to ask for you. Sasha, Pam and Kurt's oldest daughter.
It's not a big secret that once my mom and dad moved down here that we all kind of grew apart a little bit. And that me and my mom really never saw eye to eye on anything. But she tried to understand my side as much as possible, or understand my interests and likes and deal with it. She was always there for all of our friends and always had an open heart and open door and took care of anybody that she could. She was very kind and loving and did everything she could to provide what we needed, whether it be encouragement or just a hand. I'll never forget any time that we would bring a new friend over. We had a game. And we never told anybody about my mom because it was normal. It was what we saw every day. We didn't see it being any different. But we enjoyed seeing everybody's reaction to it. And the bigger the reaction, or the more confused the reaction, the bigger of a laugh we got about it afterwards. There's a lot of great memories that we have traveling with skating or just traveling in general, whether it was a vacation that I ruined and got punished and couldn't go on the next one, or a good one that everybody enjoyed. They were all great. All of them. She actually finally agreed to get a tattoo this time that she was going to come up to Wisconsin. Finally convinced her after years and years of trying. I'll be sad that I won't be able to go to that appointment with her, but I may just keep it, do it myself. I didn't think it'd be this hard. I know her memory will live on through all of us, and we'll teach it to our children, and they can talk about it and inform their kids, and her memory will live on for a very, very long time. She was a very brave woman, very courageous, and I couldn't ask for a better mother.
Kurt asked for us to sing one more of Pam's favorite worship songs. Again, if you know it, feel free to sing along with it. If not, look at the lyrics, as we know that even through pain and trouble, we believe, Pam believed, that we serve a great God.
God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time to remember. And God, though it may be a little hard to sing those words, depending on how we're feeling. But God, you are a great God, and you are a worthy God, and you are a just God. And you love each one of us here as much as you love Pam. You'll continue to love us regardless of who we are or what we do. And so, God, we continue to remember Pam, and we thank you for her. Because, God, you are good.
Pam referred to me as her friend in California. When talking to me, however, she called me her sister. We both felt God placed us in each other's lives at critical times for critical reasons. His plan was that we would lean on each other, love each other, support each other, and defend each other as sisters should. Don't get me wrong, we fought like sisters do too. But like sisters, we forgave each other, often quicker than we forgave ourselves. We met in September of 1986, shortly after getting married. She'd been married 9 months. I'd been married 1. We lived in small apartments on the 3rd floor of a complex in Oakland that had no working elevator. My apartment was closest to the stairwell, and Pam and Kurt's apartment was immediately next to mine. In fact, we shared a wall. That wall that separated us somehow brought us together. One day, I got an excruciating migraine while at work. I left work early to go home. The pain was intense. It was one of those migraines that responded negatively to sounds. When I arrived at our apartment complex, I heard a baby crying. As I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor apartment, the baby's cries got louder. I walked down the hall toward my apartment, and the crying got louder. All I could think was, oh, please don't let that screaming baby be near my apartment. As fate would have it, that screaming baby was Pam's charge for the day. She was babysitting. When I got into my apartment, I tried everything to drown out the sound of the screaming baby next door, just on the other side of that wall. I covered my head with a pillow. I turned on a radio. I prayed. Nothing worked. So I got out of bed, went next door, knocked and walked in, and then I introduced myself. I can still see Pam when I walked into that apartment for the first time. She was sitting on the floor next to a laundry basket of clean clothes. On the sofa were stacks of folded clothes. Pam was holding a crying, no, make that screaming baby. Baby Andrew was teething, but Pam couldn't soothe him. His mother had not left any teething gel. Kurt was at work and couldn't assist Pam, and Pam was at wit's end. I couldn't hear most of what she said, but all I could think was, just get him quiet, then go back to bed. So I took Andrew from Pam. As I bounced him, Pam introduced herself to me. She told me Kurt was in the Navy and they were stationed in Oakland. At the time, she had no idea how long they'd be there, and she had no friends or family to talk to. I got so immersed in our conversation that I forgot all about my migraine. Andrew fell asleep, and I sat on the sofa with him in my arms as I told Pam about myself. I, too, was a transplant to Oakland. My husband was attending UC Berkeley, and I had no friends or family near me either. Neither Pam nor I intended to make any long-lasting friendships because we both knew we would be living there for a short time before our husbands' careers called us to other destinations. Looking back, it's hard to believe we shared that wall for as many months as we did. There were many days when we sat on the sidewalk outside our apartments just talking while enjoying the sun. My not-so-reliable memory says we shared that wall between our apartments for approximately 6 to 8 months before Pam learned she was pregnant. She and Kurt moved to a first-floor apartment in the same complex. A month later, I learned I was pregnant too, and my husband and I moved into student housing. Although we were separated by distance, Pam and I stayed in touch. We made daily phone calls to check in and compare pregnancy notes. We were due 3 weeks apart. These were the days before cell phones, so text messages weren't an option. Each time either of us felt a pregnancy-related discomfort, we described it to each other. There were no limits. Nothing was forbidden. We shared gross descriptions and exciting ones as well. Among our ongoing conversations in those daily phone calls was the, "How will I know when I'm in labor?" conversation. Neither of us was sure how to know when labor truly started. Oh, our doctor said, "You'll know." Our back home friends said, "You'll know." Our mothers said, "Oh, you'll know." Pam and I hated that answer. We vowed we'd never say that if we were ever asked. In December 1987, a few days passed where I didn't hear from Pam. I tried calling her, but no answer. I didn't panic. I knew she'd call when she had a chance, and she did. As I recall, our conversation went something like this. "I did it. I had the baby, a girl. Her name is Sasha." I asked, "How was it? How did you know you were in labor?" Her answer, "Oh, you'll know." My reaction, traitor. I have many fond memories of Pam. lots of stories that make me smile. One is the story of her drive-through experience. She was new to driving and was going through a fast food drive-through. She got too close to the building and actually took out that acrylic box that hung on the exterior of the drive-through as a collection point for Ronald McDonald House. Coins and cash were everywhere. Years later, we went through a different drive-through, and we had the same thought at the same time. This store's manager was smart. His collection box was inside the building. There's a story of when I visited her and we took a shopping trip. As she pulled into a parking space, she painfully inched her way slowly into the space. She was slow and deliberate. She was taking her time, not talking, but very focused on what she was doing. Now, this is the point in the story that she and I agreed we'd change. No one ever needed to know she was the one who hit that pole, right? Anyone watching would confirm speed was not an issue. Of course, security cameras might give us away if anyone watched the tape to see we pulled out of that space and went into the next one. I can now finally tell the truth. Pam was the one who had Katrina's ears pierced. Newsflash, Kurt. It wasn't me, but I told Pam I'd take the fall since I knew Kurt would go easy on me. The story here is when Pam and her girls were visiting me in San Diego one year. She said she wanted to get Katrina's ears pierced, but Kurt didn't want it. I asked why, and she said she thought Kurt felt little girls shouldn't grow up so fast, and that ear piercing should be done at a later age. Then she and I planned. Actually, we schemed. We schemed so we could tell the truth while lying. The plan, Katrina and I would separate from Pam and the three remaining children, Sasha and my 2 children. I would take Katrina to the store and get her ears pierced. Later, I would find Pam and the other kids near the food court. Using this story, Katrina's ears got pierced. Pam told Kurt she wasn't there when it happened, and neither of us lied. That's a weight off my shoulders. Through the 30 years of our friendship, a lot happened. After our babies were born, Pam and Kurt moved back to Wisconsin, and my hubby and I moved to Los Angeles. Although our daily phone calls ended, our love did not. We could go for weeks or months without talking, but when one of us called the other, we both settled in for a long conversation. We both knew we couldn't make it a short conversation. Not because there was something to be said, but because there was nothing to be said. That's the kind of friends we were, just there, at the ready for when something or nothing needed to be said. We shared everything, disputes with our husbands, career uncertainty, and dreams for our children. We talked about things that made us happy, and we talked about things that made us sick and trembling with fear. She and I marveled many times over our lasting friendship. How could 2 stubborn, hard-headed women who wanted no friends while in the God-forsaken town of Oakland, California, become such good friends? How could those same women nurture a friendship this long through all life's changes? We met when we were teens. Okay, she was 20, with no real idea what life was. Newlyweds, then new mothers, then miles between us. At different stages of our lives, each of us lived with the other for a short period, teaching our children that sisters have a unique bond, even when they aren't related by genetics. In January, after Pam had been hospitalized, she and I had a heart-to-heart conversation. I think both of us knew her time was limited, and that we had just dodged a bullet. In this conversation, Pam told me she was tired. She said her body was failing her, and her entire life had been spent fighting for her health. With her unique needs, doctors were not prepared for how to treat her. She felt like an ongoing experiment for doctors. She didn't blame them. She knew they were limited in their knowledge. But the fact remained, no one knew how to treat her for even the simplest problem. Among the things we discussed was the wheelchair. She despised the wheelchair. She always had. Her doctors even said her chair was contributing to her health issues. She said she didn't want to be 50 and in a wheelchair. Although that comment sounded particularly odd, I knew what she meant. If 50 isn't old, it seems a lot closer to it than 49 does. On her 50th birthday next month, she'll be dancing on 2 beautiful legs in heaven. But wait, angels don't need legs, do they? She always stayed a step ahead of me. Among the many things I'll miss about Pam is her acceptance, her love, and her loyalty. I'll miss hearing her say, "Goodbye, sweetie. I love you." at the end of every phone call. I'll always remember how humble she was. I'll fondly recall how candidly we talked. I'll cherish the 30 years we had together.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pam's cousin Jane. I'm going to start to when I was little. Pam babysat for us, as did many of our other older cousins. And being the wonderful children my brother and I are, we were equally hard on Pam as we were with the rest of them. And kind of this is going back to what Pam's brother said about different things happen inside our house and what happens outside our house. And so, do one quick story about that. So one time, my brother and I probably made Pam pretty mad. I'm sure we probably either put something out of her reach or hit her legs. And so, we run out the door, and Pam came running after us. And when I say running, I do mean because she could move awfully fast on her hands. So you better have some speed, and you couldn't beat her down the stairs. So, she came running after us and yelling at us, and the other kids in the neighborhood were outside playing, and of course, they started making comments. So, me and my brother, the protectiveness kicks in. We get up there and we defend Pam. A few minutes later, we make it back to the house. And what happens? We get in trouble for being mean to the kids. So, Pam taught, part of her lesson was, just because they're mean and they don't understand doesn't mean we have to do the same in return. So that's one of the lessons we learned from her. And then she had the way of making you feel that she had the advantage sometimes. Comes time for baking cookies, and Pam hops up on the table. A little girl, okay, I want to get on the table too. Sure, that's fine. You take off your legs and you can get on the table too. Pam, that's not fair, because I can't take my legs off. Those are some of the few stories that I'll remember. Some of the many stories that I'll remember the most when we were little. And then we'll fast forward to several years. I lost my job and I moved back to the city. Needed somewhere to stay for a little while, and Pam and Kurt were kind enough to open their home to me for a few months or more. Kurt was on the road a lot because he drove truck at that time, I believe. So majority of the time it was just Pam and I and the girls and one of my daughters. And you get a different perspective, even though I've known Pam my whole life, living with somebody gives you a very different perspective on them. So she's home alone. She's got the two girls. She didn't have her wheelchair at the time, so that when she went on the house, the way she got around was with her legs. Now, on average, it's very hard, every parent knows, to keep up with two active kids at full capacity. So watching Pam do this day after day, keeping up with the two energetic little girls, getting them off to school, getting them ready in the morning, cooking them dinner. And then she also was working part-time as a cashier, I believe, at Target. And then she was on her legs for hours and hours during the day, checking out. And I know that wasn't easy for her. But there's one thing that she never did. She never complained. She really enjoyed being a mother to you guys and a wife to Kurt. It was never, ever a burden on her. She loved it. And, sometimes years after that, when I was getting frustrated with my own, I think back to that time because, and it just gives me the motivation, when I'm having a bad day, that if Pam could do that, we can all do that. So that's what I want everybody to remember. Other than that, I really want to say thank you to the church for this. It was very wonderful for you guys to step up and take care of this and help Kurt out. Thank you.
First, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who made it out today. I want to thank everyone that has been involved from the church to put this all together. I can't thank you enough, although apparently I'm going to try because I keep saying thank you. Unlike my daughter, I did know how hard this was going to be. So I wrote something down. Not so much memories as themes. We seem to be made to suffer. It's our lot in life. C-3PO, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Why would I include this as the beginning of this eulogy? A, to get Pam to roll her eyes at me one last time. And B, it's something we've all said to ourselves at one point or another in our lives. Suffering makes us who we are. It's part of our humanity. It's needed to learn. It's needed to grow. It's also needed to make really good blues music. Pam did more suffering than most in her short life. She suffered the affliction of her disability every day since she was born. She suffered a lifetime of being different, an object of curiosity. She suffered a childhood filled with surgeries and prosthetics fittings. She suffered coming of age with parents that didn't understand what she needed because back then no one understood what it was like to live with a severe disability. She suffered from anxiety and depression for most of her adult life because no one knew what to look for. She suffered through 2 suicide attempts because people took advantage of that vulnerability. She suffered the beating that using her prosthetics caused her body until both of her shoulders needed surgery. She suffered the pain that caused her for years up until she passed away. She suffered the perceived indignity of giving up those prosthetics despite what they did to her and using a wheelchair for the rest of her life anytime she wanted to leave her home. She suffered multiple serious chronic health conditions that may or may not have been connected to the root cause of her disability. When she was admitted to the hospital, she was taking 16 different pills a day just to have a normal life. She suffered through all of this, and yet, I could not count the number of times in the past 10 days since her passing that I've been told what an inspiration she has been to the multiple people whose lives she touched. I think it may have been her own suffering that caused her to want to help other people so much, whether it was volunteering at the church or just talking with someone on the front stoop of our apartment building and letting them unburden themselves of their troubles. She was there for so many, never judging, just giving an ear or a shoulder or just her time. What many did not know was the terrible toll that her altruism took on her. An afternoon of activity would take her 2 to 3 days to recover from, and yet she did it just the same. A precious resource spread far too thin. Those of us on Pam's support team knew how important her efforts were to her, and we did what we could to support them, including occasionally filling in for her when she simply could not continue any longer. And yet, when she eventually recovered from whatever activity or illness had laid her low, she once again threw herself into the breach to do what she could for her friends, neighbors, or even strangers. So, inspirational to those she helped? Certainly. But there was another very human side other people rarely saw, and it became increasingly difficult to paper over. Frankly, even Batman gets older if he's not paying attention. I don't think Pam had any regrets from throwing herself into the service to others. Quite the opposite. She did have one regret that she carried with her till the day she died, and it serves as a cautionary tale. A simple question left unspoken and vital information unshared until time and fate conspired to make the exchange impossible with the passing of one side or the other. Pamela obsessed, some would say to an unhealthy level, over something that she would never know because the only person who had that information could no longer be asked once the courage was garnered. I, too, regret a single question that had never been properly answered because I thought, now is not the right time. There will always be a later. A conceit that is oh so human because we all think of ourselves immortal princes of the universe in the back of our primitive, frightened skulls. But self-delusion rarely lasts as reality settles its cold palm on our shoulder, and suddenly there is no more time. There are no more tomorrows to defer to. Life is too short, humanity too fragile, for us to carry the baggage of regret. And I'm not talking about missing out on a trip to Tahiti, although I hear it's a magical place, but that which we inflict on each other by our silence. We forget that each and every one of us is a true miracle, a form from the chaos of improbability, like turning air to gold. But the world is so full of people, so crowded with these miracles that they become commonplace, and we forget. We gaze continually at the world and it grows dull in our perceptions. Yet seen from another's vantage point, as if new, it may still take our breath away. So as we leave this place, Let Pam's suffering, inspiration, and regret allow you to see the world, if only for one day, from a new vantage point and appreciate the miracles of our lives.
In this proud land we grew up strong. We were wanted all along. I was taught to fight, taught to win. I never thought I could fail. No fight left, or so it seems. I am a man whose dreams have all deserted. I've changed my face, I've changed my name, but no one wants you when you lose.
Don't give up, 'cause you have friends. Don't give up, you're not beaten yet. Don't give up, I know you can make it good.
Though I saw it all around, never thought that I could be affected. Thought that we'd be last to go. It is so strange the way things turn. Drove the night toward my home, the place that I was born, on the lakeside. As daylight broke, I saw the earth, the trees had burned down to the ground.
Don't give up, you still have us. Don't give up, we don't need much of anything. Don't give up, 'cause somewhere there's a place where we belong. Rest your head, you worry too much. It's gonna be alright. When times get rough, you can't fall back on us. Don't give up, please don't give up.
Got to walk out of here. I can't take anymore. Gonna stand on that bridge, keep my eyes down below. Whatever may come, and whatever may go, that river's flowing. That river's flowing. Moved on to another town. Tried hard to settle down. For every job, so many men no one needs.
Don't give up, 'cause you have friends. Don't give up, you're not the only one.
That was one of Pam's favorite songs, and a lasting message I think that she leaves with us, as to not give up, even when things get tough, as to not give up. I want to share with you just a little bit here from the Word of God. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1 through 7, it simply says this: I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but if you have not love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but I don't have love, then I'm nothing. If I give up all I possess to the poor, and I surrender my body to the flames, but I have not love, I gain nothing. Because love is patient, and love is kind, and it doesn't envy, and it doesn't boast, and it's not proud, and it's not rude, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, and it keeps no record of wrongs. Love doesn't delight in evil, but it rejoices in the truth. It always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres. This is a passage that so much of the time is read during weddings and not very much of the time read during memorial services, but I think it fits perfectly well. In fact, when asked what one of Pam's favorite verses was, immediately Kurt went to 1 Corinthians 13 and shared about love. He also shared with me that Pam likes messages really short. So, to honor Pam, we will keep it really short for us today. You see, reflecting back over an entire life, seeing that love has flowed out to others, that's what we want to remember. And that's something that we get to remember when it comes to Pam. You see, when Paul, the author of this passage of Scripture, when he was writing to the church in Corinth, the church was divided. The church was not living a life of love with one another. And he was reminding them, saying there's a foundation for every relationship, whether it's human to human or human to God. And that foundation is a foundation of love. And so many times we major in the minors. And we say there's all these other things that we can be doing, and when we can be charitable or we can be wise in what we have. But Paul reminds us, that's great, but if we have not love, if we're not loving one another, then it's all for nothing. And what I think, when I think back on Pam, is I see someone who loved people. Even through her own circumstances and difficulties, even when she faced things that I would never face, she still found it in her heart to love others. I remember so many times I would be here at the church, and Pam would show up, and she would come pulling up in her van, which I still don't understand exactly how she drove and did all this stuff by herself. She was amazing. And she would come and get herself out of the van. We'd ask for help. No, I can do it. I can do it. She would get herself out, get her wheelchair out, bring Athena in. And she would come in and just serve. What else can I do? What can I do next? What can I help out with? What can I do? What can I do? How can I be used? Not just to serve in a charity way, but to say, hey, I want to give. I want to love people. If I can love by doing, that's the best kind. And Paul, that's what he's getting to here, is the kind of love that Pam showed. You see, there's a way that we can love where we just say words, and that's one thing. But as Paul's writing this, he's using a word, agape, and you might have heard that before. Agape isn't just a love that you say, but it has actions with it. And I think it's beautiful when you find someone like Pam, who didn't have to just tell you that she loved you, but she showed it with her actions. And so I think today, as we're honoring her, as we're remembering her, as we're seeing pictures of her, as we're going to see pictures of her in just a few minutes, I think the key is if you really want to honor Pam, if you want to remember her life, then you'll do it by not just saying you love one another, not just saying you'll continue to show love to others, but to take action. Let's honor Pam as we move forward by imitating how she loved others with an agape love by showing. Pray with me. God, we thank you for our time of remembering Pam. And we thank you that in this moment here, we get to honor you at the same time as honor Pam, because Pam had a relationship with you. God, I thank you for that. I thank you that you reached down and you loved Pam through hard times, through dark times, and through joyful times. I love, God, that you put people in Pam's life, as we've heard from today, that brought her encouragement, that brought her joy, that were there by her side. I thank you for a husband that was a rock by her. God, you ordained the marriage of Kurt and Pam. And I thank you for that, Jesus. God, I pray that each and every one of us would continue to love in the way that you've called us to love. Today, in just a moment, I'm going to ask if there's anybody today that doesn't have a relationship with God. And maybe you're thinking, I don't deserve to have a relationship with God. Maybe you're thinking, I'm not ready to have a relationship with God. But I want to encourage you that today you can have a relationship the same way that Pam did. And you can have an assurance that life is incredible. That life, even though suffering may happen now, that ultimately will be with God. Today I'm going to pray a prayer, and I would ask that if you want to come into a relationship with Jesus today, that you might pray this prayer with me, and that you might find me after the service at some time mingling around and come talk with me. Would you just pray this silently with me? Jesus, we love you. God, I know that I need to have a relationship with you. I know that I can't do life on my own. I thank you, God, that you don't call me to have all the answers or to be perfect or to understand it all. And God, I pray that you would come and bring encouragement to me as I give my life to you. God, I want to be in process and in a relationship with Jesus. We thank you, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. Let's honor Pam as we see her life.
And I am lost for so lost in love.
beckon me. You draw me gently to my knees, and I